Sure. Thank you. Let me start by thanking the organizers for putting this nice workshop together and for giving me the opportunity of discussing this recent work together with the investment income at the University of Vienna, where we studied the behavior of non-reciprocal interacting processes. So let me start by giving a broad motivation, let's say, which lies in huge technological advance of the last couple of decades that allows us to study great experimental platforms that have the ability of mimicking matter in some way, but have a set of features that make them particularly nice. And these, irrespective of the microscopic nature, are that they are very well isolated from the external world. They're tunable in their parameters, in their geometries, and they're naturally suited for the study of particle equilibrium systems. And this allows us to study new exotic phases of matter, the dynamics they can pose, eventually the application of quantum computing, fate determinization, many interesting questions on the experimental and technical side. So I just said that these platforms are very well isolated from the external world, and rightfully so, because generic coupling from environment with coherence, which is typically that we are interested in quantum particles of the system. However, it was realized that some 30 years ago that the interaction of the system with the environment can actually be used in order to obtain certain desired behavior in the system itself, and these fall the category of studies presented in reservoir engineering, and has been applied to several different branches, such as state preparation, the generation and control of timing, and the study of out-of-equilibrium cases. And in particular, this latter subfield, let's say, is very interesting because out-of-equilibrium we are allowed to study phenomena that would be forbidden in equilibrium, such as the breaking of the action-reaction rules and non-reciprocal systems. So how can we implement some non-reciprocity within a system that interacts with its environment? This goes back to the seminal paper by Ashberg and Mettelman, where they describe a system made of two main cavities, here D1 and D2, that are coupled coherently with some couples starting J, and they're additionally coupled to an auxiliary cavities. Now, if this latter cavity is highly lossy, as compared to the other energies created in the model, then one can evaluate and eliminate and obtain these equations of motion for the cavity modes D1 and D2. And you can notice that clusters are different in the equation from D1 and the equation of D2. And this allows the action of D1 and D2 to be different from the action of D2 and D1. And in particular, one can choose parameter set where D1 can be influenced by D2 and D2 cannot be influenced by, which is, let's say, a unidirectional form of this non-reciprocal. And since we first out this auxiliary cavity C, you will see oftentimes in the talk that these couplings is replaced with this secretive weakly line that couples the two cavities in a secretive way. And a nice way to understand this phenomenon is that there are two ways for couple D1 and D2 to be coupled to one another, and the coherent one that is described in the Hamiltonian, and the secretive one, and the interference between the two paths can be decreased. No reciprocity. Now, this is a simple example of the thing, and then one can take this sort of unit cell and reproduce it several times and obtain a lattice, a one-dimensional scale. So now, this has been studied some years ago and has some very interesting properties. So dynamics now would be given by the Hamiltonian, which expresses nearest neighbor couple, which may be sides. And additionally, one has both this dissipative coupling between the cavities and also some on-site loss and relay. Now, nicely, one can obtain the gradient of motion for the design amplitudes that since the system is non-interactive, then the closure can be written in this nice matrix vector form. And this non-Hermitian matrix arising here, H, encodes these non-reciprocity. So you see the first two terms are, let's say, the effective coupling between the neighboring cavities, and they have a difference in the phase of this phasor, the theta maps, and this allows to tune how reciprocal the chain is. And the fact that there's this non-Hermitian matrix arising has also some other consequences, and in particular, the spectrum of this matrix is complex as the matrix is non-Hermitian, and therefore one can define a winding number mu that basically describes the topology of the non-Hermitian matrix. And then whether the spectrum encircles the origin or not, one can have trivial or non-trivial non-Hermitian topology. And in particular, in the non-trivial topological regime, one can show that the amplification that one obtains, namely the ratio between the output on the last cavity on the right compared to the input on the first cavity on the left, grows exponentially with the system size. So one has this exponential topological animation. Now, non-Hermitian matrices arise also in a slightly different setting, which is the one of the no-click limit of the Limbat-Master equation, where one can basically neglect the jump term and obtain dynamics that are described by a non-Hermitian matrix. And first is now describe a single trajectory among the exponentially many that are possible, the one where no-click ever occurs. But one case, the fact that the description of the system is particularly simple because it can be enclosed in a non-Hermitian matrix. And one of the most famous examples of these non-Hermitian enclosures is a Nelson model, which is a near stable coupling model where the coupling to the left and to the right have different strengths. And similarly to what we saw in the previous slide, the fact that these enclosures non-Hermitian has several consequences, namely the sensitivity to the boundary conditions that imply that the spectrum in the PVC is complex as for the previous matrix, while when one opens the boundaries, the spectrum collapses and realizes. And in accordance with that, one observes the so-called non-Hermitian skin effect, where all eigenvectors localize towards one of the boundaries of the chain. So all this to say that these non-reciprocal models have several interesting properties that I just described: the non-Hermitian topology, the presence of amplification, and the non-Hermitian skin effect, and organization of design space with boundaries. However, the studies that I just described are all the non-interacting, and so the aim of this work that I presented was to add interactions and see what the effect of the interactions would be on these properties that I just described, but also whether the interactions can add something to this non-reciprocal system. Now, when one adds interactions, however, the nice sort of closed structures of the equations of motion is lost. Therefore, there's no simple way of, let's say, treating this problem. And people have thought how to do that. There's the approach of taking a no-click limit, which is perhaps conceptually a bit simpler because we can just add interactions to the Van-Nelson Hamiltonian, but has a drawback that you're just describing a single trajectory among these exponentially many. On the other hand, you can take the full Limblad description, which is valid as long as the Born-Markov approximation holds, but it's slightly more complicated because it's not entirely clear what kind of dissipator would be to know this property and so on. and is also more complicated to treat numerically. Nevertheless, there are nice tools one can use to study these type of models of numerically that are tensor networks, which is what we base our analysis on. And we're not going into the details of how to study, but answer the question. Just bear in mind that with this method, then we study the dynamics of the systems. So the setting we choose is the Bose-Hubbard Hamiltonian. So we have nearest neighbor coupling with strength J and an on-site interaction of strength Q. And now we have again this wiggly line corresponding to the dissipator that couples dissipatively neighboring sites. So we see the mass equation that describes the dynamics of our model, and to study dynamics, we choose a particular initial state, which is a pure state where two doublons are initialized in the center of the chain. So this is on one hand, because it's a particularly simple initial state that makes our numerical analysis feasible, but also because this state is actually uninteresting. So it is known that in the isolated case, one takes just to Bose-Hubbard Hamiltonian, a site that is doubly occupied is actually let's say a stable quasi-particle between those strong interactions. And this is because let's say that the process that splits this doublet into two single particles of the neighboring sites is energetically unfavorable. And therefore, what happens is actually that the doublet pops all together through this virtual process in the middle, and one can formally see this by the perturbation theory and writing down the exact Hamiltonian up to second order, where now the interaction basically vanishes, and we are left with this nearest neighbor hopping of doublets. So now we replace the say simple Zonic operators with the squared ones, and so this represents the hopping of the doublet around the chain, which however is slower. So there's the effective hopping amplitude, which is now J squared per U, so it's much slower than the movement of single pulses. So with this in mind, we go ahead and study our system, including anticipation now. And we know that in the single particle cases, with these two non-reciprocal hoppings that you see on the left of the table, and then by let's say limiting ourselves to the two particle sector, we can approximately obtain these hopping amplitudes for the doublets, which are, as you see, are proportional to the square of the hopping of the bosons. So we see from this that the doublet inherits the reciprocity from the doublet from the boson in the very same way. And if you replace this strong loss gamma equals 2J into the equations for the boson in the reciprocal hopping, you will see that this corresponds to full reciprocity. So particle will be one dimension. However, it is very strong loss. And in particular, it's a much faster time scale than in doublet velocity. And therefore, what we observe numerically is that indeed the particles do move only to the right, this is the top panel, but they do so irrespective of the interaction strength. So there's no validity different depending whether the system is interacting or not. And this you see in the bottom panel here, where different curves correspond to paths in the horizontal direction of the above plot for different interactions, and compared to the non-interaction case, which would be the blue line here. And you see that basically there's, yes, some quantitative difference between the lines, but the way the particles spread is exactly the same. And this is exactly due to the fact that doublets are effectively quickly lost in the environment, which eventually remains without the bosons that is not reciprocally as we know it from the non-interaction case. So what we can do to see some effect of the interactions now to take a weaker value of the loss, which corresponds to, yes, let's say weaker non-reciprocity, but also allows us to see the motion of love. And this we see in these numerical simulations where now was non-reciprocity it's less fast, particles can also move to the left, but it's very clear that they're mostly moving towards the right. And you can hopefully see that there are two now light cones emerging. So there's this white dashed line corresponding to the single particle light cone, and then above it there's this slower black dashed line that corresponds to the double line. And this you can see even better if you take just the Dublin density, which is the right hand one, and you see that clearly Dublins only move along this Dublin line as expected, and they also move north. So with this we can show that this model presents more reciprocity not just for the single particles but also for the Dublins, and this is like a genuine feature of the Dublins inherited from the bodies. Now, however, I just told you that there are these different time scales that can be, and there's fast time scales of single particle motion and of the dissipation in the case of full reciprocity, and the slow time scale that is double motion. So if you want to, there's no way we can observe this system full reciprocity for the doublets. And so we were wondering if there's some way we can see this in a model with this kind of ingredients. And well, the idea came from the effective Hamiltonian perturbation theory, where we saw before that the bosonic operators are replaced with the squared version that corresponds to doublets. And so we thought that maybe if we replace the dissipator with this now square dissipator where we put two particle losses on neighboring sides, then maybe the job can be done. And indeed, if we now write down the equations of motion for the double correlation functions here, in the approximate case, we'll just take the effective Hamiltonian perturbation theory with this second dissipator, then the equations of motion in the two particle sectors do close. And we can write down this equation with this now non-Hermitian matrix, which covers the dynamics of the doublets. And this turns out to be exactly of the same form of a single particle non-Hermitian matrix that I showed at the beginning of the talk, which in turn is basically the same as the analysis of non-Hamiltonian. And therefore, we obtain this equation H down here, where there's non-reciprocal copying J R and J F, and this importantly only act non-trivially on the two particles. So single particles will not be affected by this non-reciprocal dynamics at all, and only two particles at the states will be affected. And now we can write down this non-reciprocal hopping amplitudes, and we see now that we can obtain full non-reciprocity for the value of the dissipation rate, which is of the same order of the double hopping amplitude. Therefore, there's no competition anymore between the different time scales. And so we do expect to be able to see this second full non-reciprocity of the doublets. And indeed, this is what we observe. So these now are numerical simulations, but not in the approximate case where we can write down this dynamical matrix, but in the full case where the Hamiltonian is the full Bose amount of Hamiltonian with this, say, two particle dissipator. And you see now on the left, there is on the left panels, let's say, we show the single particle population, so the density minus the double density. And as predicted, this spreads reciprocally in both directions, because it's not affected effectively by dissipation. And except in this sky, you can see along the double line. And then if you focus instead on the double density, this shows almost perfect unidirectionality. Of course, there are there is some weight also leading to the left, and this because there is finite interaction between the double chemistry decay into single particle state, that can move freely to the left. But mainly we see that doublets do move perfectly in one direction and along the other direction, as expected. So in this way, we show that we can, but using reservoir engineering and the knowledge one can pass from, say, perturbation theory, how the behavior of the doublings should be, we are able to construct and engineer dissipation in such a way that all the doublings can be in place. Then finally, I just wanted to show how this can be used to, let's say, play around with this kind of non-reciprocal models. And indeed, one can now take a system where both the dissipators are present, so the one that acts on single particles and the one that acts on doublings, and then one can tune these phases beta in such a way that single particles will be non-reciprocal in one direction and doublings will be non-reciprocal in the other direction. And this is exactly what we see here in these numerical simulations, where we show that from the top panel, particles, single bosons move towards the right, while doublings move towards the left in this way. And this can be used for filtering different types of excitations. And I think we have a nice setting where we show that one can target specific dissipators, specific excitations in the system, and then use these to make them move in different directions at one speed, and this can be forces. So with this, I come to the end of my talk. I showed you how one can use reciprocity in interacting systems to make particles move in different directions and use this as a tool also to distinguish different types of excitation. Of course, there are many open questions, like for now, I just discussed the system where there is only loss, so the steady state is feeling empty, and of course, a very important question is what happens when one has a small gain into the system, what's the steady state, what kind of steady state we can achieve, and yeah, what kind of transport we can observe in these models and such questions. And with this, I thank you for your attention and thank you for the question.
I'm sure there's a much. Thank you for that. So, if I remember correctly, the single bonding dissipator can be used at the end. So, we don't need by the development combination of the area at the beginning.
Yeah.
What about the two particle elements? This instead you sort of flag them as a sort of answer, what would give an interesting effect, or what would, this is rather another question that I have is, which is how would the algebraic elimination look like once you include the interactions? Would it give the same dissipator or would it change?
It would give the same dissipator, yeah. For the single, for the single particle dissipator, it would be the same. Of course, for the two particle dissipator, you would need to change the interaction between the main cavities and the auxiliary cavity. But other than that, the process goes down the same road, same vertical motion.
Okay.
I can. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice talk. So I think it touches upon the summary actually. So could you think of now, instead of having the engineering non-reciprocity through dissipative coupling, use a coherent form of non-reciprocity through squeezing or something like this? Because you could also stabilize these doublons with with this strong kernel linearity, but you can have also squeezing type of coupling, and then what are you expected to observe in that case?
Yeah, on top of my head, I wouldn't have any, let's say, particular expectation. I mean, we can discuss about it, right? And yeah, we can think about it.
And maybe a more technical question.
Yeah.
So in this reservoir engineering, of course, you are finding where are the through adiabatic elimination, where the type of coupling that you need to have this this two photon dissipation that is crossed. But in reality, you will always have to deal with regular single photon dissipation.
Yeah.
Will this just deplete the doublon space and remove the non-reciprocity, or can you also engineer it in some way that this doesn't happen?
I mean, you mean just on-site display?
Yeah, the usual one.
Yeah, I mean, this will deplete your system, so it's bad if you wish in some sense. I guess that the easiest way to overcome this is to pump particles in the system so that you keep having doublons. And this only leads up to two things. Of course, it's a more complicated numerical side, but yeah, that would be the way to go, I guess.
Maybe if I may, a final question. So for the MPS, is it actually helpful that you have the dissipation? So
Yeah,
flow.
yeah. Yes, it's typically easy to do that kind of simulation.
Good. So I think there's no questions left. So let's thank everyone, all of us.